Unfortunately, I'm not going to repeat what I said earlier, and I put on the recording late. So may Allah make it possible for us to still have captured that either now or later. So why are we embarking on this process? Do we know Allah? Would be one question. Why do we believe? Are we able to explain why and how we believe? Have we removed all doubt, uncertainties, and questions that we have in the way that we believe? Now, as I indicated, Allah created us all differently. We have been given different abilities and capacities to understand and to know certain things. Now, why Allah did that? That's up to Allah. We will never be able to get to the whys. Sometimes Allah gives us a glimpse as to why Allah did it, but the actual reason remains with Allah. And if Allah does things, it's not for us to question. But safe to say that Allah is fair, Allah is just. And if somebody has been given more knowledge than somebody else, then the person who has been given less might be in a much higher rank or daraja than the person who has been given more. Because that person made the effort to seek the knowledge where the other person stopped at a certain point, believed that they knew enough in comparison to other people, and then stopped there. It's a grave mistake, because we said that to know Allah is a ladder that has absolutely no end. There's layers upon layers upon layers upon layers endlessly when it comes to the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all we ask of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to grant and bless us with a glimpse of some of this knowledge, so that we can move on this path of getting to know our Lord better, inshallah. Now, what we're going to do, at first I didn't know where to start. And I thought the obvious place, if we're talking Tawhid, then we should start with the sifat of Allah, the attributes of Allah. And I thought, let's even take one step back. Let's go to questions that we hear other people ask. We may have asked it, but we never really tried to grapple with it. Let's start firstly with this one. What is belief? Now, when we say we've got a belief system, generally it refers to the religion of a person or people. A belief system could also be just an ideology that is not necessarily linked to religious matters, but it's a set of principles and values that a person or a group would decide on to guide how they conduct their lives whilst they're on this earth. So that is the kind of basis on which they live their lives. Now, look, it's defined in different ways, but ultimately it is your opinion about what is right and wrong. There must be something that guides one to say this is right and this is wrong, and then you normally try and follow that, or you're aware when you do right or when you are doing wrong, because it's based on your belief system. But belief is not something that you can say only. You can't just utter this to say, I believe in Allah, and then it stops there and say, you now believe in Allah. It has to do with a whole lot of other things, some of which we will touch on. But ultimately, that which you believe in should guide your behavior. it should be the rules of the do's and the don'ts in your life. Now, how do we get that? Now, I just put this up at the time when I was preparing for this, and there are different reasons why we believe. It could be because you have faith, you have iman, you have conviction, or it could be that you believe because you've researched this matter. You've not just accepted what was around or what you were born into. You've actually made an effort to research what you should believe in. Maybe it was comparative religion or whatever it is that got you, but your belief is more than just believing without any basis. So you've done your research and your investigations, or the way you were taught comes from a person that you have a lot of trust and faith in. That you must please forgive me. I think I'm getting a cold. If I clear my throat or I cough in between, you will please forgive me for that. It comes from a trusted source, or it could be that logically and rationally you've gone through the issues. Not because it's in the Quran. You've examined it and you've looked at it and it makes sense for you, and logically you have deduced, and now you have a footing which you now base your belief on. And the one that we fall in mostly, most of us fall in this one. Our upbringing generally, and the kind of parents that we have, depending on their beliefs, influences or influence the kind of belief system that the child has. Now, this is just the different possibilities. So belief this is belief. Now, what is the next step? Is it just one type of belief? What kind of beliefs are there? And I'm just going to run quickly through it because this can become technical, and I do not want to become technical. There is what is referred to as theism. Now, theism is belief generally in a supreme being, generally. But theism could be based not necessarily on monotheism in one God, but it could be people have strong beliefs. They believe strongly. Polytheism. Or sometimes they have very strong beliefs because of the way they were brought up. And from an Islamic point of view, all the things that they are doing are correct, but it's only based on conforming to what their parents and their upbringing dictated. So they just obey the laws and the circumstances in which they were thrown, or not thrown, but in which they were born, and comply with that without much questioning. They're just conforming, and you can't really ask people like this to explain because they've not gone through a process of investigation and testing their belief. Then you get the other person who is skeptical, or what we call agnostic. Now, they don't reject or accept. They don't either way. They say it's possible that it could be or it could not be, that there is a higher power. But they don't have a firm view on whether it is so or whether it is not so. And they would generally have a questioning attitude and be doubtful about what is being said. And it goes to different levels. Some are very strong, some are genuine agnostics, and others are not so. And they just, by the way, made little effort. maybe there is a God, maybe there isn't a God, but it doesn't matter to me. They would say that would be one of the things. Then you get the people who have very firm views, which also has different levels within it, where they reject that there's something like a God or a supreme being. And how they generally arrive at that point is there's no proof that there's a God, according to them. There's no evidence to show that there's a God. We'll come to that one later. And also the big other problem that they have with religion generally, any type of religion or any belief system in a higher power is, if there is a higher power or a supreme being, then how do you explain love, justice, fairness, and all of that, and you put that up against the evil in the world, the suffering in the world, the hardship in the world? They can't, they say, if there is a God, this points to the fact that there can't be a God, because a God, if there was a God, would not have allowed evil and suffering in the world. We'll come to some of these things, inshallah, if time allows. And if I don't come, please put up the question and pose it if you feel it's something that you want us to delve into. Then you get the naturalist and the materialist. They only believe in those things that they can test with their five senses. Everything to them is material, it's physical. And if you can't explain it with the laws of physics and science, then they reject it because they believe that there are laws in nature, and those laws in nature are the forces which govern this universe. So anything that's outside that, especially things related to the ghaib, the unseen or unusual things, supernatural things. So spirits, souls, the ghaib, those kinds of things, to them they reject. They say, no, we only believe in the laws of nature and physics and what is visible to us and what is tangible. Anything else they reject. Then we get another category of people. They believe in hedonism. Hedonism, big word that some of you may not have come across and some might be very familiar with it. But what is a hedonist? These are not people who have attached themselves to a specific religion or belief system. Those are people who have organized their lives around a specific set of values and things that are important to them. And key to that is the seeking of pleasure. They seek pleasure at all cost. They look at ways of satisfying their passions and their desires, their likes. And yes, I'll say it. There are people who claim to belong to certain religions, but you will see some of these characteristics far outstrip their spirituality. Yes, they claim to be, they want the label of being this or that, but if you look at their lives, then they have in fact dedicated their lives to the pursuit of pleasure and giving expression to it. It doesn't matter what the consequences are. They'll worry afterwards, if they do worry at all. But giving expression, and especially to their lower instincts and their lower desires. And as a rule, they want an easy life. They avoid difficulties, unpleasantness, strife, pain, and things like that. And they base their lives almost entirely on satisfying their own personal desires and wishes. Now I get different categories within that. I will go off the point if I illustrate it, but just to make one point, to give you an idea, that some of these qualities and characteristics can be present in the people who claim to have strong iman and taqwa. How will you see it? Say they like, for example, soccer, and they say they're watching it, they're not playing it, but say they're watching it. Then giving satisfaction to that comes almost at the expense of anything else. It doesn't matter now what religion requires of them. They will try and do that, and then once they're done, they almost say, okay, now I've done that, now I'll go back to what I am expected to do. Now, this is just to give us an idea of that even this way of life is something that can be intermingled with any one of the others that we've mentioned previously. But from a tasawwuf, religious perspective, we can see that the person who lives that kind of life is a typical example of being a slave to their nafs, because that is exactly what the nafs wants. The nafs wants your passions, your desires, and your lust, and your greed, and all of those things. It wants that to dominate your life and influence whatever else you do. Now, that can vary from a lot to a little to a mix or whatever, but the point is, once that's present, it shows that that kind of person is under the control of the nafs and the dunya. The dunya, of course, with its attractions and its temptations and its glitter and all the material promises, all of those things become alternative to the spiritual way, because that requires effort. Now, before I go to this next question, let me pause and just hear if there are any questions now. Okay, maybe it's too early. Let's go back. This one I would like people to respond to. The question is up there. Will all non-Muslims go to Jahannam? Let's just hear what if your child must ask you, if your sister or your friend ask you this question, how are you going to respond? Even if your answer is you don't know, but I want people to participate now, because these are the questions that crop up. It's cropped up without even knowing your lives. I know it cropped up for all of you in one way or the other. Will the people who are non-Muslim, will they go to Jahannam? Let's just hear. Yeah, somebody has said only if that's Allah's will. Let's hear, are there no other views? Okay, I'm not going to put you under too much pressure, but we want this session to be interactive. Otherwise, we're not going to get the maximum benefit. I would like to know, what are your questions? What are your concerns? So that we can actually collectively deal with it if we are able to inshallah. Who goes to heaven or hell, Jannah or Jahannam, is entirely in Allah's hands. Allah is the one who not only knows, but Allah is the one who will take the ultimate decision. No one else, only Allah. Now, to guide how one should deal with this kind of question, okay. Allah has chosen Islam for us as the most perfect guide and code of conduct for us as human beings. It went through different phases, different divinely revealed kitabs, the Injil, the Torah, Zabur, before the Quran, and those things were abrogated, and Allah put the final guidance, and that is the Quran. Allah. So Islam, as far as the Quran and the Sunnah goes, is the way to success for all of us. But that's at the most basic level, accepting Islam as your religion. Now, when you accept Islam as your religion, you're not doing everything right at the same time, doing all the things that Islam says, but you're accepting that that is the path, that is the route that I should be going. The real test of whether you are a Muslim is not your declaration, but your conduct. Firstly, on the things that Allah instructs us to do, and then the things Allah would be pleased with if we do it, but it's not compulsory. So, does it therefore mean if Allah has chosen Islam as the ultimate guide for humanity as a whole, does it then not mean that those who are not Muslim are outside of what is pleasing to Allah? Now, I've come up with some Quranic ayah and verses to guide us as to how one should actually wade through this very sensitive, tricky, and controversial matter. Allah says, Allah, who is Allah? The one who created you, me, and everything around us. The one who knows everything. Allah speaks to us. Allah says in chapter 67, verse 2, He it is who created death and life, so that He might try you as to which of you are best in deeds. How you conduct your life. Who's doing the good things and staying away from the wrong and choosing good over bad. Allah says that's why you were created as human beings. And just to press pause there so that we can get a feel of this. The time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created human beings, right at the beginning, when none of us had human form yet, then Allah told the Malaika, I'm going to put a Khalifa on earth. Allah told the Malaika, and the Malaika then said, because they have some knowledge which we don't have, but they could see that people were going to do all sorts of unacceptable things, like killing, shedding blood, corruption, all of those bad things. The Malaika asked Allah, we glorify you, our Lord. We do nothing else but glorify and praise you. Now you're going to put a Khalifa on earth. Won't they do exactly the opposite of what is pleasing to you? Then Allah's answer at the time was, I know what you do not know. Now, what I want to extract from that and share with you is that Malaika were created to do exactly what they are doing. They are in service and in worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the moment they're born till the moment when they will be taken away. Remember, everything is going to die at some point, including Malaika. Human beings, on the other hand, were created with choice. Good on the one side, bad on the other side. Choice in the middle. You can decide. Allah gives you the right to decide whether you want to do good or whether you want to do bad. In the case of the Malaika, is it so? No. The Malaika has no choice. The Malaika can only be good. There's compulsion. It's impossible for them to move outside of that paradigm. Whereas human beings can exercise it. So Allah created us as human beings to see whether we would, as human beings, whatever our circumstances are, whether we will do the things that are good and stay away from the bad. Let me just see what okay. So if we go to the next one, chapter 10, 27, for those who do good deeds. Oh no. For those who do good deeds, there shall be the best reward. Now, what does Allah say here? Allah doesn't speak here about believing here. This is the way I looked at it. Allah speaks about the deeds. And good deeds will be rewarded. Allah says that himself. Allah, the owner of everything, don't argue with Allah. Allah says in the Quran, for those who do good deeds, there shall be rewards. Now, what about an atheist who did a lot of good? Didn't believe in Allah? Or he belonged to some other religion, maybe not an atheist, but a non-Muslim, as compared to a Muslim person, but who's a sinner, who's doing bad deeds. There's another Quranic ayah that we should consider, because Allah speaks here about best deeds, good deeds, but in this ayah, Allah has promised those who believe and do righteousness, for them is forgiveness and a great reward. Don't even go there. Don't even go there to go and judge. Who will go to Jannah and who will go to Jahannam? How do you factor in? Let's look at the atheist. Let's look at an atheist. Is that person just an atheist because they like to be seen as a person who's different, and or did they go through a process where they actually looked at the question of a higher supreme being, have arrived at the position in search of the truth, and came to a conclusion, but driven by the intention and the near of wanting to find out if there is or if there isn't? You know that one of the saints in our deen, Imam Ghazali, rahmatullah alayh, he went through a period where he was skeptical. I don't need to explain what is skeptical. He didn't outright reject, or he didn't outright accept. When he was at his peak of his career as a Muslim philosopher, very well respected by everyone that knew him, and he went through this period of being a skeptic or agnostic. And look, he's considered as He's been given the name of the proof of Islam. How do you judge the atheist who's not arrived at where he got? Did he go through a similar process or not? And if Imam Ghazali didn't actually arrive at where he arrived at, but his intention was he was in search of truth, we can never know these things. So how can we judge? In a court of law, whatever can assist the judge is placed in front of the judge, and the judge will use all the evidence and then make their worldly decision based on the evidence that's presented to them on the one side, and then what the law of justice would be, and then give a ruling. That's in a court of law. How can we know nothing. We just have a perception of maybe a statement that somebody made, or it might even be accurate, that this person is a non-believer, he's an atheist. You will go to Jahannam. No, his good deeds mean nothing. Sister Teresa and Gandhi and whoever else, doesn't matter how good they were. Leave those things. We don't know. That's for Allah to decide. How Allah will factor in every single thing of the type of heart that motivated them. Were they trying in their way to do good, but didn't arrive at the right path? Or was not exposed to the true essence of Islam, the beauty of Islam, and never arrived there? I think leave that. Focus on, we should be focusing on our own lives and our own conduct, and be guided by the two top ones. Yes, so we claim to believe. Now is the test. Are we engaged in good deeds? Do we choose good over bad all the time? Not are we making salah? That is you believe. Now comes the requirements of what you claim to be. You claim to be a Muslim. Those 5 things, the arkans of Islam, you're compelled to do that. Otherwise, you can't claim to be a Muslim. At the very least, you must believe that that is compulsory. Even if you don't make salah on time, or don't go for hajj or give all your zakah, but you must believe that that is the path of success. But your conduct and your behavior should reflect that. That's what we should be focusing on. Do the things that's compulsory and try and live good, exemplary lives, and leave judgment of anyone or anything. We can never know what motivated people to do X or Y. When I was discussing a similar kind of topic with somebody else, I said, how do you judge the man who comes out of the bar? You go past and you see him coming out of the door of the bar. Or you drive along a road at a certain time and you see a car pull up, you recognize the person, and he stops to one of the ladies of the night and he speaks to them. Is that enough proof to judge now? You now saw that, so you believe now you are in a position to judge. Be very, very, very careful. You in your own mind can say, it could have been for this, it could have been for that, it could have been for that, or whatever it is. Every person you speak to can have a different view on why that person stopped or why the other person came out of the bar. All of which could be right, but only Allah truly knows, because Allah can see in the heart. Sometimes people do things, but you don't know why they do it. So it's one of the first things that when it comes to belief systems, how do we believe who is right and who is wrong? Leave that up to Allah. I just want to make this statement. There's only one Allah. So if the Jews believe in somebody that they call whatever they call, and the Christians call their God whatever they call him, does that mean there is another God? A Christian God, a Jewish God, a Buddhist God? There's only one God. That is Allah. These people are searching to believe in that higher being. But they've chosen a path that, according to the last message that Allah sent to us, is the incorrect path. The path is wrong, but they believe in Allah. Maybe in a distorted way, in a way that's not acceptable to us as Muslims, but don't let us judge them. You Christians this, you Jewish that, and you whatever. That's not our role, our function. Allah didn't create us and put us on earth for that particular purpose. Let me move on. If somebody asks you, can you prove there's a God? This is a typical question that the atheists and the materialists ask. How do you prove? How do you prove that there is a God? Or let's just go through the balance of what I put on the slide. Because the proof that they are expecting from you, these the atheists now, you should present them with the proof, like they do it in a court of law. Here's the proof of why I'm saying that man did this and he is guilty, and here's the proof. But what are the things that they would accept? They will only accept things that can be tested in their laboratories and in the laws of nature and physics, because they don't believe that we are beings that are material, but we are also spiritual beings as human beings. Allah gave us bodies, but the real thing within us that makes us who we are, that will live on, that will go to Jannah or Jahannam, that lived before the body lived, is our ruh. That's our higher side. That is the essence of who we are. That is your personality, your identity is attached to your ruh. Do they believe in these things? No. So if they don't believe it, they're not going to accept that you can come and present them with arguments about ruh and things that they can't see and test and observe. Is it so or is it not so? They will just not accept it. And that's the kind of proof that they are looking for. And I didn't know how else to explain, so I came up with this one and says, so if you say we must only use material things, and we know Allah is not visible to anyone or anything, Allah is not part of the material world. Let me just press pause here. We're going to press a lot of pauses as we go along. When we say Allah is not part of the material world, why not? Because the material world was created by Allah. So you can't use that which Allah has created and make it applicable to Allah. one can go very deep into this kind of reasoning. And one of it would be, so Allah created the material world, and that which is material is tangible. The senses can engage with it. You can see, eye, touch, smell, taste, maybe all of that. And you want to take that and you want to apply it to Allah. That which has been created becomes applicable to the one who has created it. So before it was created and that didn't exist, then what applied? Let me, we're going to come to some of these things, but I throw that up to you. So if they limit, the atheists limit us to say, prove to me there is a God. No, I don't accept this. Okay, that I will look at. I will consider this, but I won't consider this because now you're talking about things that doesn't exist. It's part of what you call the unseen. So they kick it out. So in a sense, because they don't believe in the unseen, in the ghaib, it's like the example I use. They say, tell me what you see, but don't open your eyes. Now, don't tell me one can see images after your eyes are closed. I'm not talking about what do you actually see. So they actually wanting something that's not possible. They want you to do something that, because the different positions that we come from, they believe in the physical and we believe in both the physical and the spiritual dimensions of existence of human beings. But if you were to ask them, okay, maybe you've got a good point. From where you're standing, you don't accept this unseen world. Okay. Now let's for a moment accept that what you are saying is right. You telling the atheist now is right by way of argument now. Will they be able to prove, like they're asking you to prove there is a God? And you say, okay, let's turn it around on its head. Will you be able to prove to us who believe that there is not a God? Will they be able to prove there's not a God? How do you prove there's not a God? So it's easy for them because you're talking about Allah. You see, the problem is Allah can't be described like we describe things in the material world with form and shape, some of which we will come to later on. Allah doesn't take up space. Time is not applicable to Allah. Allah's not material. Allah's not tangible. Those things are physical descriptions, and the atheists and materialists are locked into that frame of mind, and their arguments are exclusively based on that. How are they going to prove that what you believe in you believe in the unseen? How do they prove to you conclusively now? They want to convince you. They're not going to be able to convince you. Like you are not able to convince them from where they are. So does it mean now, what does that mean? Have you now reached a stalemate? You can't prove to them that God exists because they don't accept your argument. Neither can they prove that God does not exist. So do we have a stalemate now? Maybe in some instances, but if the person is genuinely seeking for the truth and the person is open to being persuaded, they're not concerned of where it's coming from, who is saying it. All they want is they want to taste the truth. They're in search for that, and they don't mind where they look and how they look, and they're open to receiving whatever, but they will process it, and if it makes sense to them, then they will accept it either way. If you're talking about an individual like that, as opposed to the person that's just plain outright stubborn, insist, no matter what you say, they're going to stick to their views, that person is probably not persuadable. You can't define or describe that person as persuadable. But the one who is persuadable, subhanallah, is undeniable evidence for the person who has an open mind. In the universe itself, this material world that you place so much emphasis on will show you undeniable truth that exists within the universe itself, in the universe of the existence of Allah, of a supreme being. And if we take that and we take what is contained in the Quran, now we're speaking to a persuadable individual. And we say, for argument's sake, you must now, Mr. Persuadable, for a moment, accept what we are saying and work with us and follow our argument, and then you can make your comment or either reject or accept. And you say, if what we are saying that there is a God, how did he communicate to us what he would like us to do whilst we're here on this planet Earth? Now, in our deen, our religion, we have been given a book which spells out how we should conduct ourselves, and it's called the Quran. But is it the book? You see, if you say it's a book, you actually limit yourself when you're discussing it with the person, because you're now just talking about the book. But if you say the one that we say created the entire universe and everything it contains is speaking through us in a way that we can understand, and through this book, it's God's instruction to us. Don't just refer to the book to somebody like this. He's persuadable now, he's open-minded, and we show what the Quran contains and what you are doing in science and your technology and the laws of nature, and we show you the Quran. Allahu Akbar. If you are not persuaded by that, you'll probably never be persuaded. But there's enough evidence in the universe, in the Quran, and the two together to show this could not have come from anywhere else. It could have not come logically. You want to talk logic and reasoning? Now reason with us how you could have come, how the Quran could have said this or that or that. What period are we talking about? 1400 and X years ago. What was the state of technology with respect to this aspect that Quran is speaking about? What was known at the time by anyone or any civilization at the time? A person like that, if he's persuadable, you see, the criteria is the type of heart that you are speaking to. Subhanallah. Let me just see what I've got on the slide. Okay, let me just do the slide and then I'm gonna conclude. So is there a God? Now we're talking generally now. A child is asking the teacher or the parent, is there a God? The one who's going to give the answer will be informed or base their response on how they believe. Now, if the person, if the child asks the atheist father or mother, if there is a God, what will the answer be? It's obvious. And the same for the person who is a skeptic, and he answers, he will give that kind of answer, and the other one who is a monotheist will give a certain type of answer. Now, if the person who's asking is not a child, now another person asking another person, and he comes with the atheistic method of testing your answer, which is the scientific method only, and you want to come talk about the Quran and the Sunnah and Rasulullah and all of those things, then you just shake his head and say, what are you talking about? I don't accept these things. So you can't deal with the people who are locked in to only the scientific and materialistic approach to give them spiritual arguments. You're wasting your time. You're going to come from two completely different approaches, and you'll never meet. So they won't accept your spiritual arguments. Are we going to accept their scientific and material arguments? The answer would be, well, if you don't accept my arguments, I'm not going to accept your arguments. That would not be the correct way if you want to make progress. If you do want to make progress. Because for us as true believers, that very approach that they're talking about, basing their views, their opinions, maybe not their conclusions, on science and physics, we believe that that forms part of the laws of Allah. Nothing is outside the laws of Allah. Science is not different from the laws of Allah. Nature is not different from the laws of Allah. Because if you say science and nature is different, we can't use that. That's different. Are we saying that there are two sets of knowledge, divine knowledge, and then there's another set of knowledge that deals with science, the natural laws, and the laws of physics? Then actually saying that there are two divine entities when it comes to that aspect. Say we're only talking knowledge. That the one is under Allah's control and the other is under the control of whatever they say. Natural laws operate like this and it's under this control, but it's not part of that. We believe nothing is outside. Nothing is outside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge and control. Nothing, 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 nothing. Because if we say that that is not part of Allah's knowledge or ownership, then we are actually setting up a partner to Allah insofar as that particular thing is concerned. Whether it sounds strange, because when I say nothing, I include everything that you can think of. Are you saying that is also part of Allah's knowledge? Yes. Nothing is outside Allah's divine knowledge and control and ownership. So now we accept science and the natural law. Now we're going to use that because that's as part of Allah's knowledge. And Allah knew we were going to be here today in a world where people have sent spaceships to the moon and to Mars and all sorts of things. Did Allah create this world not knowing how technology is going to expand? What kind of Allah do you think we have? Allah knows everything, not only where we are today with the explosion of information and technology, but where we will end up. And the Quran and Sunnah, what Allah has given to us, is supposed to guide us through all the different phases. So if science is exploding now and technology is exploding, then we better factor that in. Now we must be able to combat those people who are only locked into questions of science. And can we? Yes, we can. In the previous session, we dealt with how Allah created the universe. We're going to repeat some of that so that you can see scientifically they've proven certain things. And what did the Quran say? And we will make a comparison. So we will use science and the natural laws because it's part of the same knowledge. They're not limiting us. We shouldn't limit ourselves to exclude that and stick to only the questions of the unseen and the ghaib. Because there's enough examples, as I said earlier, in the universe. Sure proof, some of which we will be dealing with when we deal with the sifats. And it's not only those things that's been mentioned. There are numerous other things. In fact, every single thing that you see is a potential confirmation of the existence of a supreme being. Everything. I don't know how to justify every single example that you will throw up, but everything should be assigned to us that there is a supreme being. But making empty claims that I am a Muslim and I believe, and making no effort. My name is so and so, and I'm a Muslim, and I don't accept or I don't this or that, but you don't do anything to increase your understanding, not only to counter those people, because initially, you know, when you're younger, especially, you get locked into discussing these debates, how right you are as a Muslim and how wrong the Christians are for the following reasons. And you get locked into that and you stay there for years. That's not the purpose, to go and prove how wrong and how right other people are, and spend your whole life around that. Make the effort to become a better Muslim. And the place to start is to getting to know Allah better. And how do you know Allah better? Through the subject of Tawhid, which means the sifat, the names of Allah, the actions of Allah. So if we make effort and we are sincere, then we would be different to the ones who are just making claims, because they will be considered as lazy and disobedient. And if you're disobedient, what goes with disobedience? Anyway, even in the worldly example, punishment or potential punishment, disobedience and laziness. Because remember, Allah knows every single one's ability. Allah created how far you can work out a mathematical problem, how far you can work out a mechanical problem or any other problem. What kind of brain have you got? Do you think Allah don't know the kind of brain that you have? Allah is the designer and the creator of it. So if you make effort and you are sincere about your effort of wanting to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah will pour into your cup. If you bring a big enough cup, Allah will fill it. But remember, a cup can only take so much. Allah will pour in that cup until it is reached its capacity. but it requires effort and sincerity. The rest we must leave up to Allah. And Allah will give us knowledge where we can get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better. And in the process, we will be able to worship Allah better. We will be able to carry out the very reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. We will be able to better carry that out because we will understand it better. So, bottom line, make effort. Don't just sit and say, no, I'm busy or what, and get so sucked into the dunya. Make effort to get to know Allah better through this topic of Tawhid. Make effort to get to know Allah better. And in the meantime, just try and do as much good as you can. Start by the small little things in your life that you are doing wrong. Just say to yourself, from tomorrow onwards, I'm going to pick up my bed clothes. I'm just not going to chuck it all over the show and wait for the domestic help to come and pick it up. Do small things right. If you do the small things right, it's easier. And then afterwards, doing the bigger things right becomes a lot more easier than if we were to try and do everything at the same time. Leave it up to Allah. Allah will guide us. Allah is merciful. Allah is fair. And Allah loves those who are sincere. And if Allah loves you, subhanallah, I'll end off with this one. We said this in a previous session. If Allah loves you, so you're doing something that Allah is pleased about, that Allah summons Sayyidina Jibreel. And when we say Allah summons Sayyidina Jibreel, understand this correctly from a Tawhid perspective. How? So you don't have an image, there's Allah and there's Sayyidina Jibreel. But anyway, Allah summons Sayyidina Jibreel and says, Jibreel, I take you as witness that I declare my love for so-and-so. You too, I instruct you to declare your love for so-and-so. And Sayyidina Jibreel say, I declare my love for so-and-so. And he announces it that to the heavens and the earth. And as the head, he's the head of all the malaika. So he goes to the other malaika and he summons them and he tells them and instructs them, oh malaika, your Rabb has declared his love for so-and-so. And I have declared my love. And you are instructed to declare your love for so-and-so. Just picture that. All the malaika, all, how many? Numbers won't, we're not talking trillions and billions. There are figures that numbers can't do justice to. All of them will declare their love for so-and-so. And then what happens then? They announces that to all the 7 samawat, everything in creation. Then everything in creation, they operate on the basis of compulsion, right? They don't have free will. Allah and his malaika love so-and-so, and then they declare their love also, even whether they are animate, alive, or not, or inanimate. They declare their love for so-and-so. And sometimes just sincerity and effort is enough to qualify you for that love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm going to open up the floor for the last round of comments. And just to give you an idea of what the next slide would be and how we will start off is, why have we been created? A question that we brush over. Oh, but that's an easy question. Allah created men and jinn to worship Allah. So what does that mean? We'll discuss some of that. next week, inshallah. But for now, I am going to pause there, take the last round of questions, and then we will conclude, inshallah. So I open up the floor, and I want people to participate. Please participate. You make it easier for me to know how I should approach topics, whether I'm going to slow or whether I'm going to fast or whether I'm going to whatever. Help me ask questions, please, or make your comments. What do you understand better? What has helped you? What has confused you? Let me hear, please. The floor is open.
Assalamualaikum, Buddha.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
This the constant reference in the Quran about how we must believe properly, and those who do not, the wrath of Allah that will descend upon them, and then the description of Jahannam. So to me, that's a big thing. To understand that what is meant by true belief, and whoever is outside of that, does it mean that they're going to be facing that anger of Allah? That's something that I would like to understand better, inshallah.
Yeah, Warda, the short answer to that is I don't know, only Allah knows. But what I think we should extract from what we have covered tonight is we know too little to judge. How do you judge belief? What is belief in Allah? What would Allah regard as belief? Is it the declaration only of the kalima? Or is it that plus whatever else? Allah is the judge of that. But what we as believers should understand out of the point that you are making is that we've been exposed to the true message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the form of Islam, and we are made aware of what are the consequences and the punishment of not doing what we are instructed to do. So rather than look outside, look inside, because then we can correct what we, even if we are guilty of some of these wrongs, that we can correct it, and that we can work on increasing whatever good that we can do, inshallah. No one can answer that question truly. Is there anything else? Like some of you said earlier, you in your responses that you sent to me, if people ask you, will Gandhi go to Jannah? Will Mandela go to Jannah? Or are they going to go to Jahannam? Then your answer should be, don't say maybe, whatever. All you have to say is, Allah knows. Nobody else knows. Inshallah. Shukran. All right. So what can I say? We started off, I don't know, yeah, to actually get a gauge of whether it is going the way I would like. I so looked forward to what we're going to be dealing with later on, but this is merely an introduction, and we're going to get to the actual sifat and grapple with them individually, even if we have to stay on one sifat for weeks, doesn't matter, till we all feel comfortable that we, and then move on, inshallah. Abdul Samad, do you want to make dua for us, please? I don't know why.
I think Abdul Samad is in the ghaib.
Why don't you want to make dua for us? Anyway, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. اللهم إنك عفو كريم من تحب العفو فاعف عنا فاعف عنا فاعف عنا. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. Oh Ya Allah, guide our hearts. We are on a path. We are so weak. We are so inadequate. We want to get to know you better. Ya Allah, help us, guide us, assist us. Fill our hearts with the desire to know you better and help us, give us glimpses of that knowledge. We can never truly know you, Ya Allah. Only you can know yourself in full. But we ask you, Ya Allah, illuminate our hearts with that knowledge so that it can assist us and guide us so that we can take the next step and the next step to get you to know you even better. Oh, Ya Allah, shower your mercy, your rahmah, your barakah, your nur on all our parents, whether they are alive or whether they are deceased. Ya Allah, you are the only one who can do that. We implore you, we ask that we as the offspring of our parents, that we be the cause that their daraja and their status will be increased and the pens will continue writing for them, whether they are here or whether they have departed. Oh Ya Allah, we ask you, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, Ya Rab. We ask you, Ya Allah, with all the sincerity that we can muster, Ya Allah, we ask you, look after our young people, Ya Allah. Fill their hearts with true knowledge and barakah and nur. Let them not become distracted and tempted to go into paths that will take them away from their deen. Help them, guide them, assist them with the right answers. Assist them so that they can hold the torch and carry our deen and fight for our deen and protect our deen when we are gone. Ya Allah, give them the equipment, the ability to do all of that. Oh Ya Allah, we ask you to put patience, sabr in our hearts. Sabr in our hearts to accept your decree, especially when it comes to those things which are difficult in our lives, Ya Allah. Because you have promised with that kind of patience that you will give to the slaves who are patient with your decree and your will, Ya Allah. You have promised a reward that is with you alone. It's not measurable. Ya Allah, we ask you to give us that kind of sabr, that kind of patience. As weak slaves, Ya Allah, we also ask you, make easy for us to be able to cope and to bear with those challenges that will become inevitably part of our lives in whatever form. We ask you, Ya Allah, to give us the ability to cope and solve our problems for us, Ya Allah, whether it is our rizq, whether it is our domestic circumstances, whether it is in the work, or whether it's in the social environment, or whether it's within family relationships and other relationships. All difficulties, Ya Allah, give us solutions, but also give us the reward of having tested us for those things. Let us all recite Al-Fatiha together. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghairil maghdubi alayhim. ولا الضالين آمين. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. دعوة فيها سبحانك اللهم تحية فيها سلام وآخر الدعوة أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Praise and thanks to the owner of all the worlds. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I say shukran to all of you who have participated. I hope you will join us in our follow-up sessions, and may Allah give us all the benefit with nur and barakah in your lives. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله
warahmatullahi
وبركاته.
wabarakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Aisha. Akbar.